I am a huge sucker for pixel art style games, but normally the gameplay consists of watering my crops and tending to chickens with the occasional sprinkle of green rain, so I was very excited to give To Pixelia a try, as this involves stepping into a city and trying to carve out your life there. On the surface, it may look sweet, but I am sure there is a criminal underbelly here too. To see if city life is for me, I am going to spend the next 7 days in the game and put it to the test. Don't forget to like and also subscribe for more cozy game content, but let's get into it. So before we actually move in, we are thrown straight into character customization, and I will say there are not many options. The color palettes could definitely do with a little bit of work too, and I would just like some more different clothing options. I know later on we will probably get to buy stuff, but when your options are some jeans and a skirt that I think looks a little bit like a nappy, I would just appreciate more. There are some makeup options, and the color palettes here are also a little bit dubious. I know yellow lipstick is definitely a favorite of mine, and if you wanted to, you can also match your lipstick to your eye color. Character customization aside, you can also pick your personality. I went for foodie because I obviously like food, bookworm because I like reading, and romance because I like romance books. I'm not all that romantic, but I do think it might help spice up the gameplay later, hopefully anyway. I was then introduced to the map for the first time, and it did look pretty big. I was very impressed. However, it did strangely remind me of that rug that we had as a kid, you know, the little one where you drive all your cars around. If you know, you know. My first goal was to try and find the real estate office, otherwise we will be sleeping in this portaloo tonight. Before I could even think about getting to the real estate office though, I was kind of introduced to all of my Sims wants and needs in the game. Some of these were very interesting, including the aptly named toilet need. I think they could have come up with a better option for that, but there is a few here, and I'm definitely going to have to keep my eyes peeled on these throughout the game. With that out of the way, and after nearly being run over and almost socializing with Rebecca, I made it to the real estate office and met Ethan. 2000s me would be very jealous of Ethan's eyebrows. They are well groomed. Ethan said he had found the perfect flat for me, however I am dubious because he says it's so perfect I don't have to pay rent for a week, so I can clean up the mess to make it livable. I mean, who can turn down that deal? Whilst enjoying a stroll to my new apartment, I encountered my first protest, but no one would tell me quite what it was about. Should I be concerned? I also met Carl. Carl seemed nice, but unfortunately he didn't enjoy my jokes. I finally made it to my new apartment block, and I was apprehensive to see what was behind this door. However, the mess wasn't too bad. I think Ethan was being a little bit dramatic, and the cleaning up was actually pretty easy to do. Amongst the rubbish, I did find a mysterious letter. I'm sure we'll have to learn more about this later. The game then told me I needed to go shopping. You really don't have to tell me twice. But this was when possibly I made my first mistake, as I decided to decorate the wallpaper and flooring. Obviously I had to go for the floral option as this looked pretty cute. Then I realized I had actually spent all of my money. Maybe it is time for me to get a job. My neighbor Jane kindly took pity on me as she realized how poor I was after decorating my flat, and she invited me round for dinner. I met her cat Whiskers, who has a talent where they can walk through the doors, simply magical. I helped out in the kitchen, and Jane provided me with some good news on the job front. Her mother works in the civil office and can help me get a work permit. Apparently it pays to know people in high places. As I was on my way to the civic centre, I spotted this homeless man, and I swear yesterday he was naked in the rain, but I'm glad to see he has found himself some clothes today. After that distraction, I was able to reach the civic centre, and Sarah kindly allowed me to skip the queue and get the work permit. The next step was to head to the job office, and on my way I stopped for a little dance in the park. I guess I'm fun employed for now, but then I did get run over, so maybe things aren't all that fun. Bruce was the guy to help me find a job, and the options were outstanding. So much to choose from. I guess waiter it is. Conveniently, after picking my new job, it was immediately time to go and start my first shift. I soon discovered that waiting life might not be for me. The idea was pretty straightforward. You just talk to the chef and deliver the food, but I thought I would try and be smart and pick up all the dishes at once and deliver them. This doesn't work, so do not try it. I did manage, however, to get a few tips in the end and make back all that money I wasted on wallpaper. My boss then got all philosophical about asking about my dreams, and here I decided to go with best-selling author. I'm really not much of a writer, but we'll give it a go. After my shift, I discovered I had a mobile phone and I took my first job on the app, and I can celebrate my first shift with a bottle of wine. After all of this progress, I became a level 2 Pixelian and unlocked pets, but then I realized how tired I actually was, so I needed to race home and get to bed. On to day number 2, and I relieved my bladder, and just as I was about to step into the shower, I received a phone call about that package job from yesterday. The apartment is still looking a little bit drab, so I wanted to treat myself to an oven, but they are too expensive. So instead, I settled on a bright red couch. I am instantly regretting this color choice already. On my way to the Civic Center to collect the package, I stopped off at the academy to try and learn, but instead I ended up failing a class and meeting a dodgy character called Wayne, who tried to entice me to an underground club in a place called Bottom Town. They really could have picked a better name for that one. Anyways, I managed to pick up the parcel and was able to use my first ever Portaloo in Pixelia. This is definitely a date for my diary. I found the guy who wanted the parcel, then it dawned on me that he was stood next to a shop called Fleurs. Is it fate that I am playing this game? Probably not. It's a very generic name. I, of course, then had to try and step inside, and it was adorable. I now want Danielle to be my BFF so I can get free flowers. Sadly, I couldn't buy any plants yet as they were all locked. I decided to put on another shift at the restaurant to try and make up for yesterday's mistakes, and luckily I did. I managed to get a performance rating of A. But sadly, all of that work made me sick with the slimy Tim virus. With no medicine, I decided to eat a cake instead, but that didn't fill me up as much as I wanted, so I drank my wine too. Although that made my mood better, it did not make my stomach any fuller. They told me to visit the hospital, but instead I decided to ignore this advice and went home to bed. When I wake up the next morning, I was still sick. Maybe it is time to try and find the hospital, some food, and also a new job. That is quite a big to-do list. To make things better, as soon as I stepped out, I then got run over. This is a great start. I didn't find the hospital yet, but I did find a pharmacy and I bought a mysterious green pill, but that didn't really seem to help things, and it turns out I now have another disease called the slacker disease. They really didn't need to call me out on my life choices. So back to the mission to try and find the hospital. Luckily, it wasn't too far away as we just had to go a little bit further south, and after I had sunk a substantial amount of my money, we were healthy again. Now it's just time to find some food and a Portaloo. Luckily, there was a Portaloo waiting for me around the corner, and I also came across a taco truck in the park. I really hope I don't end up back in that Portaloo after these tacos. Are you kidding me? I now have another disease from the tacos. Top tip, do not eat the tacos from the dodgy looking taco truck. Back to hospital we go. I am going to be their #1 customer. Whilst crossing the street out of the hospital, I managed to get run over again. I am not making a third trip to the hospital. I decided to take the bus to the work centre place, and I was kind of guessing at where this was, so fingers crossed it was the right area. Officer Elaine was officially the 15th Pixelian that I had met, and doing this quest gave me a new book to learn from. I eventually made it to the office and resigned from my waiter gig and decided I should become a butcher, as this did not require a diploma and it paid better than the waiter. This should be very interesting. I stopped to eat my burritos from the truck earlier, and guess what? I got sick again. Seriously, avoid that taco truck. At this point, I have spent nearly all my wages on getting healthy again. This is not great. I visited the police station to try and report the taco truck owner, but they didn't take me seriously, and Officer Kelly was not amused. After that stressful day, I treated myself to a hot bath and an early night. On to day number 4, and I awoke and decided it was time to get on with some reading of these books that I'm collecting, and I made it on to level 1 cooking. Despite me picking the bookworm trait at the beginning, reading apparently bored me, so it was time to venture out and find some fun. I found the casino but decided against that, as getting myself into debt in the first week would not be cool. I also found the cinema, but apparently I need to be at level 5 Pixelian. Major sigh. I did, however, find an internet cafe, and thinking that this would be fun, turns out that this was actually for coding and programming, which my Pixelian didn't enjoy at all. It was time for work, and boy, the butchery job is harder than I thought. Maybe I made a mistake leaving the restaurant. This job does work very similarly to the waiter job, however you do have the minigame for actually preparing the meat, which is hard. It's very hard. You have to really get the timing right and the box is so small, so I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy this one at all. Back at home, and I tried to cheer myself up with a new painting canvas, but apparently my mood was too low, I couldn't even enjoy it. So the only thing left to do was sleep. After my nap, I woke up and tried painting again, then it was time to go and find some food. I did find a cafe, but unfortunately it was shut, and I then got distracted trying to become a pro basketball player. Spoiler, that is not on the horizon for me. I then camped outside the market until 7 AM because my character was getting seriously hangry by this point. Finally, the market opened, and it was actually pretty cute because I could run around with this little trolley, which I thought was adorable. After browsing the shelves, I decided that I'm gonna live off candy bars and crisps. With my nutritious breakfast consumed, it was time for another day at work, and on my way I made an exciting discovery, the cheese shop, so I had to pop in and buy myself a little bit of feta because why not? Another day at work, and I've decided the butchery job is definitely not for me. I tried to be organized, get ahead of the orders, but everyone just wanted chicken. And then when I went to deliver the orders, because these people do not know how to stand in an orderly queue, they're definitely not British, I was handing out the wrong orders to people. I will definitely be handing in my resignation tomorrow. To top it off, I ended up in the hospital after my shift. I guess it was bound to happen as they let me alone with sharp knives. I received yet more injections, and at this rate, I am going to become a serious pincushion. In need of something fun to do, I visited the music shop, but I couldn't buy anything, unfortunately. I did find another convenience store on my travels, and I decided to visit and stock up on more nutritious snacks. I eventually found a random person dancing on the street and decided to join them because this is what my life has come to, thrusting into the air at 6 PM in order to feel some excitement. In order to make me even happier, I decided it was time to try out the nightclub. On the way, I started to question what time frame this game was actually set, because didn't Blockbuster go out of business in like 2010? Other rental stores were obviously available. I finally made it to the area where the nightclub was, and wow, Wayne was not lying when he said Bottom Town was the seedy side of town. What have I let myself into? As soon as I entered into the club, I was thrown into a dance battle, and I'm not sure what happened or how it happened, but I won. After dancing the night away at the club, I received a mysterious phone call from someone who claimed to have sent the letter. This was not creepy at all, as they have been watching my movements. I wonder if they saw my multiple hospital visits, because that would definitely make me question if I was going to talk to someone. The quest required me to try and find a payphone, and after running around a bit to try and find one, I gave up and headed home as I was in need of a bathroom and beginning to smell. With my bathroom trip complete, I leveled up my painting to skill level 1 and then turned in for the night. The next morning, I continued my hunt for the payphone, and I came across the North District and the new farming products. I decided to buy some soil and seeds, but where do I buy a pot from? Before I forgot, I decided to resign from the butcher shop and go crawling back to my job at the restaurant. Before my shift, I finally made it to the bank, and now I have a credit card for making very sensible financial decisions, of course. As I was running around, I did try and find a shop to buy a pot, and my mood was getting low, so it was time for more air thrusting. Dancing. Mood increased, I found a phone and decided to make the suspicious call, and I was then whisked away to perform an undercover mission as a waiter, which should be easy as I have prior experience. Upon finding the correct person to serve, I was tasked with trying to find a USB stick, and to get it, I had to drug someone with sleeping pills. This sounds very easy. Once I had sent the guard to sleep, I cracked the safe, and ta-da, the USB was mine. With that little side quest complete, it was time to try and get back to my main goal of finding a flower pot before my work shift starts. However, this one was not fruitful and no plant pot was found, but I did find a bookstore. It was time to head to work, and this one was a successful shift, much easier than the butcher's. I finally hit level 5 Pixelian and unlocked the cinema. On the downside, I am starting to get sick again, but I am just going to ignore it and head to bed. On to our final day of the week and our first stop with the hospital, as my health would not stop going down. I did try to befriend the staff, hopefully they'll give me some form of discount. Then, with the help of the To Pixelia Discord, I learned that the pots are actually sold from your home catalogue, so now I have tomatoes growing in my windowless apartment. What can go wrong? I decided I wanted to embark on my education further, so I bought more class credits. However, I didn't realize today was actually Sunday and the university was obviously closed. I love it here. However, I did discover that the canteen sells quite cheap food, so we are upgrading our menu to include cheese puffs and toast. Just before work, I popped back into the bank and invested in my future by buying some shares in the Greedy Panda Co. These pandas better not let me down. After another very successful work shift, those tips were seriously rolling in. I made it home in just the nick of time, and technically we went a bit into day 8, but oh well. So just before we wrap it up, I just want to share a few first impressions about the game in case you were on the fence about buying this one. Overall, the gameplay loop is quite fun. There are a few things that definitely could be improved upon to make the gameplay feel smoother. I do wish the character walked a little bit faster, but I do know there are other forms of transport that will be unlocked later, and when you get to grips with knowing where all the bus shelters are, I think those will come in handy too. I also wish the job gameplay was smoother. Quite frequently, I was serving the wrong customer and the butchery minigame felt overly harsh as it was such a small area to hit. And as you've probably guessed it, I also think the sickness is a problem. I don't know if I just got seriously unlucky, but no one should be having to visit the hospital 3 times in one day. So overall, I do think this game has potential. They just need to make some serious changes and kind of fix up how harsh the game feels, particularly in areas such as the minigames and with the sickness. If they did that, I think the gameplay would be a lot more relaxed and a lot funner. I'm not saying that the game needs to be easy to be enjoyable at all. I just think that this feels very harsh, especially when you're like the first week in the game. To have these experiences wasn't great. So yeah, overall, it definitely had some fun elements, some things that I enjoyed, but it could definitely be ramped up a bit. Let me know in the comments if you have played this game or if you're planning on playing this game, and I'll see you again soon with another video. Bye bye!